Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Beth Lagulo with the Great Transition Senior Living Seminar Series in Keller Williams Winter Park. It is a pleasure to see each and every one of you, and also to welcome our online community on Facebook Live. We are excited to be here with our 81st installment of the Great Transition Senior Living Seminar Series. Great Transitions was founded by our good friends Paul and Lynn Henderson back in 2013. In an effort to guide seniors during one of life's biggest transitions. We know that we are thankful that Great Transitions developed the system for working with seniors and their families as their housing needs change over time. And it can be 12 to 18 months of preparation sometimes even a little bit longer. And sometimes an event can happen that will speed up the process of downsizing. So that's why it's super important to have a plan. We are here to guide you through the entire process of creating that plan. And whether you choose to create the plan and put it on the shelf so you can pull it off when you need it, or go ahead and put that plan in place, it's done, and the decisions that you have made are yours, and you know exactly what's happening. We genuinely believe that it is our greatest responsibility to help and guide seniors through this process. It's an honor and privilege to care for those that have cared for us. That is very simply the Great Transitions way. Our objective here today is, in every seminar, is that you would come for education and stay for community. And the education that we provide is about a wide variety of topics: legal topics, financial, medical, housing, and other general issues. We're not here to try and sell you anything. Neither are our educational partners. That's why we're partnered together, is we truly want to be resources to you and to the senior community at large. Now, we do ask you a little thought to put in the back of your mind, a challenge to ask yourself: who's going to be tasked with making decisions for you when you're no longer able to make them? And will you agree with the decisions that they make? The other part of that is, have you shared your plan with your trusted loved ones or your trusted advisors? We want to make sure that you have communicated that plan so that it can be put into place when the time comes. So with that being said, we're going to just jump right in full force to our topic today, tackling the topic of driving after 80. You know, as a realtor, you can imagine that I spend a lot of time in my car. I'm going to meetings with clients that are selling their homes. We're scouting out neighborhoods for buyers, going to brokers' opens to keep a pulse on the pulse on the market in our different little enclaves around Orlando, because we do have a lot of different neighborhoods. My car is, I often call it my mobile office. Today it was my storage unit. Andre loaded it up with all the AV equipment and we brought it here for the seminar. And even just last week, Nicole and I used it as our dining room. We had a listing consultation, and after that we got some yummy takeout and sat in the car and ate it and debriefed over that meeting. So having that freedom to come and go is something that I value very much, and I'm sure you do too. And for a lot of us, that started when we got our license, or if you grew up in a rural area like I did, it started way before I got my license. Plug your ears, detective. You don't want to know that. I recently, about 2 weeks ago, had some foot surgery, and on my right foot, and so I can't drive. And that has really rocked my world, because I have had to rely on my trusted circle to get me places. And that means I've had to call and say, I need help. A very wise friend of mine always says, your greatest superpower is the ability to ask for help. and it's something that I am learning the hard way. It is very frustrating. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today, and a lot of us may even dread having the conversation about driving as we age. Whether it's time to hang up the keys or maybe make adjustments to things like not driving at night or not getting on that death trap we call I-4 and taking some alternative routes. We're going to confront the issues head on today because we feel that you need to be empowered to make the best decisions for you. And so if you're empowered, you have the information, then you can be a part of that decision-making process when it's time to maybe adjust your driving habits. Because the ultimate bottom line in all of this is safety. Your safety and the safety of others on the road. Just as a reminder, if you have some questions as we're going through some of these things, please feel free to jot them down on your notes sheet, and we will take a Q&A time at the end of our questions. And before we get started, I want to introduce my friend, Detective Sione Martel. Detective Martel and I got connected. I have a very good friend that works for Seminole County Sheriff's Department, and I called her up and told her what we were doing, and she said, I have the perfect person to come and be on your panel. So I'm really excited that you're here.
I don't know about perfect. But...
let me tell you a little bit about him. In 2007, Detective Martel started his career at the Florida Department of Corrections. In 2008, he moved back to Chicago and worked in corrections until coming back to Florida, because we all come back to Florida, in 2012. He joined Seminole County Sheriff's Office in 2015 and has worked in corrections and road patrol. He did a stint at the Maitland Police Department in 2018, returning to Seminole County in 2020. And he shared with us in conversation, and this may not be a surprise to those of you who live in the Maitland area, much of his work was traffic related and maintenance.
Very true.
Detective Martel is currently the Elder Crimes Detective at the Sheriff's Office of Seminole County. He is taking courses on DUI investigation, advanced DUI detection, domestic violence investigations, and was a field training officer at the Sheriff's Office. Detective Martel has been a part of 50 plus DUI investigations and has worked a multitude of traffic crashes in his time as a law enforcement officer. Outside of work, he grew up in Chicago, Illinois, where he met his high school sweetheart and married her in 2003, so just over 20 years of marriage. They have 4 beautiful children together, and believe this or not, a grandchild on the way. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
We're very glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
So let's just jump right in and talk about some of the most common issues related to driving a vehicle that you notice and deal with as a law enforcement officer as people age.
Yeah, when it comes to like aging and driving, obviously it's a freedom. It's just like Susan said, it's freedom, and we don't wanna give that freedom up, right? No matter what age we are, unfortunately. Especially if you're a man. We're stubborn. We're stubborn, and we're gonna keep driving until the wheels fall off. The problem is once you get to a certain age, those wheels fall off a lot quicker because you're hitting stuff or you're running into stuff. But so a lot of the age-related stuff that we see is that you have, again, I-4 for instance, you have an older driver who is on the road and you're a little more cautious and driving a little slower, and you have all these kids that are 16, 17, just got their license and they just want to go everywhere fast, right? So it creates a real bad tunnel. So that's a big issue we see, and that's where we get a lot of accidents and things like that. And again, it's just not wanting to give up your car, not wanting to stop driving, which I can't blame someone, but it's those things we need to talk about.
Sure. I think it's something that we've done for so long that it's hard to imagine, and that's kind of what I'm going through right now. Imagine what it's like when you can't just run to Publix or...
Yeah, it's your freedom.
Yeah.
It's your freedom. It's 100% your freedom, and that's for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 40 years old, and I wouldn't know what to do if I was in class right now. You know, obviously my job's gonna be real upset, right?
Right.
I can't do much. But yeah, it's that's the main part is we have this freedom that you look forward to when you turn 16 or 17, whenever you get your license, and from that day on, you're like, this is my way to go, hit the road and go. And now you're getting older and you have to make that decision, and it's a hard one.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. One of the things we talk about in our Downsizers Club is our emotions and how our programming, the things we say and do, drip on our thoughts, and our thoughts create actions, and our actions create those emotions. Initial emotions, when somebody's like frozen on I-4, or like I'm a little out of my depth here today, when you're coming, what are some of the emotions that people are going to go through the course of this?
I mean, as you start to mature as a driver, you start to go and have various different emotions, and obviously one of those, as a more mature driver, you get to a certain age where you have to start thinking, do you have fear? That's a big emotion for a lot of people, right? Is fear. If I have fear to be on the road, you're not going to be confident, and that's going to create a problem for you as a driver alone, not only other people around you. But when it comes to emotions like that, it's also the emotion of, when you go look back at the freedom, you have that emotion of someone telling you you can't do this anymore, and it makes you angry, right? And you're upset about it because you're basically being told you can't do something that you feel you still can do. And so all these emotions kick in, and that's where people make these decisions to continue, even though they shouldn't, and they know that they shouldn't.
So fear, becoming defensive, anger, I think those are things that potentially could be avoided by talking through some of this and creating a plan for when it happens, because we know that eventually it will happen. Law enforcement officers, let's talk about that aspect of it. You talked about somebody being on I-4 and maybe being out of their depth a little bit, or having some fender benders and things like that. What's a law enforcement officer gonna do in a situation like that?
I mean, just like any crash, when we first arrive on scene, our main priority is everyone's safety. You should hear it. If you don't, shame on them. But you should always hear it when they come on scene. The first thing the officer should ask everybody is, are you okay? Do you have any injuries? Do you need fire department? And then go to the next driver. And then after that, you start working the incident that occurred. Because our safety, everyone's safety is the most important thing for us. And then after that, we have to talk to everyone and go from there. And that's where we're probably going to speak to someone and see that this person's a mature driver, and it's probably has something to do with a cognitive issue or some other type of mental or medical issue. And at that point, as a law enforcement officer, you're not going to sit there and you're not going to sit there and I'm going to ticket this person, or I'm going to take them to jail today. No, you're going to sit there and see what's the underlying issue, and then we have to address that part of it. We're going to go and talk to them more about what they're going through and how to address this with the family and contact family. And then the last thing is we're going to make sure that we get them out there safe. So we're not going to let them drive the car home if we feel there's something happening like that.
I think that's great. So often, I think TV or Hollywood portrays cops as tough and mean and all that stuff, and really, when we talked earlier, you mentioned safety, and so that's your big concern.
Yeah, majority of the time we go to calls, it's safety, regardless if it's a small, fender bender, or if it's a large standoff. At the end of the day, our main concern is always safety, everyone's safety around. And yeah, Hollywood portrays us as, I'm the boss, you're not. And then when you see us in real life, majority of us are like, hey, I'm a teddy bear. I really like to talk. I like walks in the park or something.
I love that. That's great. So let's say My parents are aging. We have couples here today. What are some red flags that trusted loved ones, or maybe even your good friend, needs to be on the lookout for as we see different driving capabilities?
I'd say just be cautious of everything, right? You're gonna know your parents. You're gonna know your husband or your wife better than anybody else. You're gonna know your best friend better than someone else, right? So just look at patterns, right? Is this person forgetting things more often? Is this person, hey, we're gonna go to the store today. Let's go outside. Oh, I forgot my car keys. What? I just gave them to you. They're in your pocket. Little things like that. Or as you're driving together, just pay attention to how they're driving. If you notice they're missing stops, they're forgetting where we're going, they're not driving as the same that they usually do, something's happening. These are little things you want to notice and start talking to them about. Hey, how do you feel? How has anything changed recently? Have you felt differently? And stuff like that. And the other thing is knowing yourself. That's the biggest part, knowing yourself. I know myself. I know when I'm about to get a cold. I know my throat hurts. I know I'm about to sit on the sofa with a blanket and cry to my wife, and she's gonna complain the whole time, right? Same thing with my wife. She gets sick, she knows she's gonna clean the house and yell at me because she's stronger than me. She does it all the time, right? So, but you know yourself. If you don't feel comfortable, you get into the car and you're like, ooh, I don't feel comfortable today. I feel shaky, or I don't feel right now. You have to know these things. You have to have these signs, and you have to stop yourself before you get yourself hurt or someone else.
So I think what I hear you saying is that really is a day-by-day type of decision-making that you're doing. Not, I went for my annual physical and my doctor said I could renew my driver's license.
No, this is a thing that happens over time. This is nothing, none of this is gonna happen from here to tomorrow. I mean, this is something that gradually occurs. It's not something that one day from another someone's gonna just come in and be like, I just drove NASCAR yesterday. Today, I can't make it to Publix. We're not going to do it. It's just, this is over time. Things start seeing, but the sooner we can see these signs and the sooner we can just notice all the changes, it's just going to be a lot better to have those conversations because you want to have them early with the person.
Yeah. And I think too, you talked about cognitive issues and medical issues. I remember years ago when my grandmother had cataract surgery, driving at night all of a sudden became a big challenge for her because of the way, I don't remember all the details, but the lights were different.
Yes.
And that affected her. She's like, I don't know if I want to drive at night. Like I might drive around our little town, but I don't want to go outside of the city limits kind of thing.
And that's a perfect example of how things start to change. It's not going to be, by no means is anybody saying, hey, I don't feel well today, I'm going to stop driving completely. But it's just like your grandmother. She knew she was going to stop at night, so she'll still drive during the day. It might be that transition where I'm only going to drive during daylight, not at night anymore. And then it might gradually go on from there. A couple of years later, it might be, I can't drive altogether. But it's a small change. But at least you have to identify that there is some type of issue happening, like the lights, and then you stop at that point.
So it could be a new medication that you're on. It could be a new diagnosis. We talked, like some people have neuropathy in their feet, and that makes a...
Yeah, if you can't feel the brake, and you don't know if you're hitting the brake, that's a problem, right?
Right.
So you have to start seeing that there's changes in the bottom of the feet. And, when we go back to like people who have like Alzheimer's dementia, that's one of the things that we deal with and we try to explain to like new hires at the sheriff's office. When I give them a class on Alzheimer's dementia, that's one thing I do tell them. I'm like, you'll see somebody that left from Sanford and you'll find them in Winter Park, Orange County somewhere. Why? Because when you have an advanced case of Alzheimer's dementia, you lose the feeling in the bottom of your feet. So you can walk for days because you're not feeling the pains, right? And that's things you have to notice if you're driving. If you start to lose that feeling in the bottom of your feet, you feel the leg pain that you're not feeling much anymore, you're going numb. These are just things we have to see and notice.
Okay. This sounds like a lot of work, doesn't it? But I think that whole awareness of self and the people that we care about I think it also has to be backed up by, I'm gonna listen when my loved one or friend says, hey, Susie Q, you know you missed that stop sign back there, right? Or did you just drive through that red light? And not get defensive about it. Or did you not see the guardrail, that you backed into? Our cars are getting fancier and fancier, and they are supposed to be easier, but sometimes that technology makes it a little more challenging.
It does. I have young drivers at home. I have a 17-year-old that doesn't know how to reverse without a backup camera. And that's so frustrating to me. When I learned to drive, I had to put the arm on, look back, and here she's like, "Where's the camera?" And I'm like, "I will break this screen if you don't know how to stop it."
How many of you know what it's like to go from that car that might have had a cassette deck and all the knobs, and then you got the screen and trying to navigate that? That is a challenge, I think. I got a new to me car recently, and I still haven't figured it out.
Yeah. No. I mean, we have a newer car, and it almost self-drives, and I mean, that's super dangerous on the road too. And again, that's that whole part of you're being cautious on the road and going slow, and then you have this guy who has his car in auto drive and he's watching Netflix. Like, that's a problem, So you have to watch out and be cautious about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to tag on Alzheimer's Dementia Resource Council is a great partner if you do know of someone that is maybe recently diagnosed or has the diagnosis. They've got a lot of great resources, so I want to just put a plug in.
Yeah, we send a lot. Me and my partner Amanda, we try to send a lot of people out to ADRC. We have, just because of their, now they have testing also to try to do advanced testing and stuff, which we try to send a lot of family members there and tell them like, hey, it's never a bad idea to try to get this advanced diagnosis.
Sure. Let's talk about maybe becoming a little more proactive. What we've discussed up to this point is reacting to different circumstances as they occur, but the licensing laws for older drivers are fairly liberal. If you can go in and pass the eye test, you can usually get your license renewed. But how does a senior stay more proactive when it comes to driving and stay safe behind the wheel?
There's a couple things to do out there. I mean, like for us at the Sheriff's Office here in Seminole County, at least in Seminole County, we offer what's called a citizens driving course. So anybody can sign up for it and take it. It's done out in Geneva at our driving range. And you'll get instruction out there from our instructors that teach law enforcement how to drive. And it's basically an advanced driving course, for lack of a better term. It's I forgot the word that we used yesterday. I was talking to you about it. It's a defensive driving course, I'm sorry. Yeah, so it's more of a defensive driving course. So a lot of people at the Sheriff's Office, we send our kids there to take the course. A lot of citizens sign up for it when it's available. You just have to look on the Sheriff's Office site.
So it's open to drivers of any age?
Yes, which is a great thing, because then you can go there and you can see all these young kids that you're going to be dealing with next to you on the road and interact with them, right? And then you can see what their thought process is, and you let them know how you feel about certain things, and you guys take this course together. There's courses like that. I'm not sure if Orange County, Volusia, or Osceola offer it, but it's something to look into.
So is it a classroom setting, or are you actually getting in a car and?
It's both. So
okay.
We do it out at the track. So at the track, we call it the track. It's our driving range. Yeah. And they'll teach you stuff. You'll have a driver with you. It's very safe. It's nothing. You're not going to go and do the slip course.
Not drifted into a parking place.
We're not going to set the water up and have you drift around and stuff. You'll throw up. Trust me. I did it 3 times. It was rough. But you'll go out there and get some instruction, and they'll show you some weaves and stuff to go through. It's very beneficial, but taking something like that, like a defensive driving course, is very beneficial. And then the other thing is, here in Florida, something I just recently learned about was the courses you could take online. It's a 6-hour course. It's a mature driving course, and then you take that, and that will help lower your insurance. Depending on your company, you have to let them know. The only drawback to it is that it has to be done every 3 years. You have to renew it every 3 years. It's a 6-hour course, but there's stuff you'll learn out there.
6-hour online, or can you go to places and take it in person?
From everything I'm looking at, I've seen this thing online.
Okay.
So it's a 6-hour online course, and you take it. They say there's exams in it and stuff like that that you have to pass. But once you do, you contact your insurance, you should be able to get a discount on your insurance, whatever the rate is, whatever they give you on that.
AARP offers those in any classroom. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I was talking to someone, one of our clients. She could not be here today because she had a ukulele lesson. But she took a class through AARP that was offered, and she said it was very informative and helpful. So we want to, again, knowledge is power. So getting out there, finding those communities. Again, we like connecting with other people. And I think there's a camaraderie that's developed, commisery maybe about those 16-year-old drivers that are on the road driving like crazy.
Yeah, I'm 40 and I can't stand it, so I get panicked right now. But the other thing is, when it comes to that, the other thing you can do is try to look for support groups, right? There's other people going through what you're going through. There's support groups. You just have to look for them. One place that we send a lot of people is One Senior Place in Altamont. And One Senior Place has a lot of resource information when it comes to support groups and different things like that. And I'm pretty sure if you talk to Chris there, if anybody's been to One Senior Place and knows Chris Shepard, if you talk to Chris, I'm pretty sure if there's not a support group, Chris will set one up for you. Chris is on it, so.
That's great. That's great. So for those who elect to stop driving or may have a temporary suspension on their license, or maybe it's been revoked for some reason, local solutions for getting where they need to go. You surprised me when we talked earlier about some options that I was unaware of to get some help with transportation if your trusted circle is not available.
Yeah. Like Beth said, there's a list on your chair that we put together, and that's just a few of them. Some of the ones on there that I've seen personally, Meals on Wheels, for instance. Everyone thinks Meals on Wheels is just food. Meals on Wheels is more than food. They offer a lot, and transportation is one thing that they'll offer. The other thing is, when you move into a community, let's say you're in a community and you need a ride, you want to do a ride share, right? But you don't want to get the Uber app or anything like that. Uber has it set up where it's called Uber Help, and most communities have it set up where they can go on Uber and set up the ride for you. And you don't have to have a smartphone, you don't have to be on the Uber app. The community can set everything up for you and pay through there for you without having to go through the actual platform that way. And it's a lot safer, and then the community can actually track when you get picked up, dropped off, and returned and stuff.
And I think our communities can probably speak to some transportation services that are offered. I was at a community, week before last week, and we were talking, and the bus was going to Costco. And I'm like, Costco? This is great. And then I happened to be there when they got back, and they loaded everything for the people, and they unloaded it and sent it up to their apartment, which was just amazing. And I know that the communities that are our partners, you guys take people to doctor's appointments, different things that they need.
Yeah, anything within a doctor's appointment within 7 miles of the community is included in the fee, so there's no fee for it. It's actually, you don't even have to pay for it.
So you just have to get your name on the list.
This is just calling the front desk and they can, or calling transportation.
Pretty easy. Gladys, same at Mayflower?
Same thing.
Awesome. Brittany?
Yeah, 10-mile radius on certain days, and then on off days, there's small nominal fees.
Christina?
Yes, same, and you can also
like staying at a fancy hotel and just calling the concierge and saying,
Exactly.
please take me to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's super beneficial when you can get into a community that offers that. Because the other thing is, like I said, when it comes to like the Uber Health app and the community can set that up for you, the reason for that too is that they keep track of it. Again, not saying there's anything bad with Uber or Lyft or any of that, but again, we don't know these people. I look at it as a law enforcement standpoint, and we can't trust everybody.
So if somebody was aging in place,
Yes.
and my parents live in Winter Haven,
Yes.
so I'm not taking them to Publix.
No.
I could set up an Uber Health app and
Yes.
order
The
the,
ride share for them.
okay,
Yeah, and then you're able to track everything. So you
okay.
can track where they're at.
Know that they got there, know that they got home.
Yeah, which to me, in a law enforcement capacity, that's so much better.
Okay.
It gives you that sense of security, right? And we just want everyone to be safe at the end of the day. Like I said, we get big teddy bear, long walks in the park.
I think we had a couple of teddy bears in the room. Okay, so let's talk about, we've kind of danced around this. Let's say we've got someone that is resistant to letting go of the wheel. How do we, if we love and care about them, how do we go about addressing that with them? And if I'm that person that's digging in my heels and I'm not giving up my right to drive, how do I wrap my head around that?
There's a few ways. I mean, one, you're obviously going to want to have the conversation with them. You know, that's your loved one, that's your family member, that's your best friend. You want to have that conversation with them. It's a hard one, but someone's got to have it. And you're probably the best person to have it for them. And you just want to let them know what you've seen, what you think. You know, maybe that's, hey, why don't we set something up, going to the doctor and talking to your doctor and just seeing what they said. Just a checkup. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Make it seem like it's nothing bad, but in reality, you just want to go to the doctor and get that clarification. The other thing is, you know, you can contact the DMV and let them know, like, hey, such and such, I feel they're having issues and they probably need to have a driver's re-examination done. And you can set that up for them. I don't know as to how anonymous that would be, but I don't think they go into the DMV and say, hey, come on in, your son wants you to have a driver's re-examination. And then the other thing is talking to law enforcement. If you go to that scene, let's say they're involved in some type of fender bender or something like that, talk to the police officer on scene and let them know, like, hey, this is what's been happening lately. I think it's becoming some type of issue, cognitive, medical, something. And unfortunately, mom, dad, brother, sister, uncle, aunt doesn't want to accept it. And let that cop know. And that cop, 9 out of 10 times, is going to hit that little button on their screen that says driver's re-exam and set them up for a re-examination that route. You know, again, they go into the driver's re-exam. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose your license. You may go into a driver's re-exam and they're like, okay, we're going to have you re-exam next year again. And now instead of that longer period of your active license, you have to come in at a yearly basis, right? Because even the driver's facility is like, oh, you're starting to decline, we got to monitor it.
So then, if that were the case, you may want to go ahead and sign up for like a defensive driving class or even the online classes.
Yeah, something that's going to just make you comfortable again, right? And again, self-awareness, right? You have to know in your heart, like, I can't do this anymore. I go out and every time I get in my car, I'm so scared to drive. If you're scared to drive, you can't be out there. You know, you shouldn't have fear. You should be cautious when you're driving. We should be alert. We should be alert at all points. But if you're fearful when you're driving, that's a different issue. You shouldn't be out there at that point.
Because that changes your confidence level
Yeah.
and you're not making great decisions.
No, you're more panicked. You're jerking the wheel. You're going to hit somebody, crash into something because you think this person, you're just so scared. It's not a good thing. It's not safe.
In my neighborhood, before my surgery, I started practicing with my left foot. And I decided that wasn't a good idea. Because it's like, I'm just not, I was like, whoa, I don't want to hit the back wall of my garage,
Yeah.
right?
We don't
So,
want you to pay it.
oh goodness. Well, this has been great conversation, and I think part of this whole Thriving to 100 series, what I'm hearing, and I think we'll hear some of this when we even talk about finances, is the importance of planning for the what if and doing the proactive things now to stay, as we talked last month about living to 100 and the fitness and health and wellness things that we can do to keep our physical strong. We've talked today about things that we can put into place, conversations that we can plan for, and let's be honest, it's easier to have the conversation before it becomes an issue. To say, okay, we're gonna have to at some point talk about me not driving anymore. And when we do, I'm gonna be ready to listen to you. I might not like it, and I might put up a little bit of a fight, but I'll trust that you're gonna help me to navigate when that is the right thing. And maybe I'll practice driving with my left foot and realize that's not a good idea, or whatever it is, right? Or take that defensive driving course because I want to remain sharp in the brain and have that confidence that you
I think
talked about.
you hit it. I think you nailed right on the head. I mean, honestly, it's the planning is the most important part, and that's not just for this; it's for every aspect. I mean, there's many cases that I've gone to where they didn't plan ahead, and now the family's like, "Well, I need power of attorney, or I need this and that," and you can't. That person now has Alzheimer's dementia, or they have some type of other cognitive thing that doesn't allow you to get power of attorney because they're not in the right state of mind, right? And then it becomes a bigger legal battle, and then we go into houses that go into probate and stuff, and they're calling the sheriff's office to investigate, and it's like, sorry, there's not much we can do, and it's the saddest thing we see, but it all goes back to planning ahead in every aspect, whether it's planning on when we're going to do with the driving, when we're going to have that talk, when we're going to talk about licenses, and when it goes back to your financial, power of attorney, things of that. It's just planning in general is so important at all times, and having someone to help you with that is even more important.
We talked with Linda Solash-Reed about making those plans when we chatted earlier this year, and I think family members or friends may be a little, oh, we're not going to talk about that. You're doing fine, right? You don't have to break that out. Paul, you shared with me when you and Lynn sat down with your boys to go over the plan. They're like, you're fine, Mom and Dad. And you're like, no, sit here and listen. We're going to tell you what our plan is. And I think that's super important to develop that. And maybe it's that you need to talk through the plan with them. And it could be your attorney that you're talking with through some of these things. It takes a village.
It's not, and again, sitting up here, I'm not perfect by any means. I do this every day at work, and I'm still guilty of it, right? My parents have called me probably for the last 6 months, and they're like, hey, we're leaving on a cruise soon, we gotta talk, we have to sit down and go over everything. I'm like, you're fine, you're gonna come back. I don't wanna think that way, right? So I think when it comes to the planning, it's the total opposite. So as when you're trying to have that conversation as a son or daughter with your parent about driving, when it comes down to planning, the parent's trying to have that conversation with us, and I don't want to think about the negative stuff in my head. So I'm like, we're not thinking that way. I'm not putting that in the air. But I should be having that conversation. Actually, I gotta go call my mom after this.
If that's the best thing that came out of this seminar, I think that's awesome. All right, well, are you ready to field some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure we have a couple. Educational partners, whoever has the microphones, if you could come up front so you can see the hands as they shoot up. Shocker that Chris has a question right here on the front row. Let's start with you.
Put the mic
Okay.
Okay. Technology. We've seen where cell phones have taken us in the last 20 years. We hear a lot now about the self-driving cars, Teslas in particular, and I see a lot of them on the streets. Is this something that we can look forward to, that I can hop in my car and say, take me to Publix?
Oh, what's coming down the pike in the way of technology?
I don't know how that avoids the 17-year-old stock car drivers out there
Yeah.
switching lanes, but maybe over time, those older cars that don't have self-driving will phase out. So 20 years down the road, maybe. You know, look, cell phones weren't even here 20 years ago. Right?
Yeah, so I see it as every day is progressing, right? And I mean, I've stopped people in Teslas when I was on the road. I've stopped them thinking they were looking at the news, you know, and that big old screen. But in reality, it's like mapping their whole route, their stops, telling them ahead of time what traffic's going to do and all this. And they do that now. You know, you get in your Tesla, and you're like, take me to Publix. Here you go, and drive you there. I don't know if that's the route we're going to go. The only reason is we still have that thought process. There's still a divide. Some people like it, some people don't, right? Obviously, with the storms that just hit this year, we saw that there was 1 million dead Teslas that couldn't even move around. Now that Teslas are getting older and their batteries are starting to die, people are starting to see the cost of that, right? So, and then also I have a car that's almost self-drive. Like I'll hit it, it'll drive in the lanes, it'll do turns for me, and I gotta hold the wheel every so often. But is that car gonna last me 20 years, 30 years compared to the old Mustang that was built to last, right? So, but technology keeps improving, and I feel as though I'm probably old school mentality when it comes to that, so I don't agree with it. I'm not a fan of it. I still like to go to the store and touch my items and feel it before I buy it, you know?
I think
So,
you can get complacent.
yeah, that's
I
a big
think
problem.
I remember when I was learning to drive, my mother, we had a 1970 Thunderbird, Ford Thunderbird. It had 4 doors. And she said, picture this car as having 429 horses that are pulling it, because it had a 429 engine in it. And it was like, that was like what I was trying to control. And I think that was a challenge, but the self-driving car, you're not even thinking
No,
that I'm
it's,
operating this big machine.
yeah, I see it as an issue. I mean, firsthand. I drove to South Carolina to go see my daughter when she was playing college ball, and driving up there, it's a 6-hour ride, and I put my car to self-drive majority of the way, and I think I lifted the road 3 times, right? Luckily, we're in Florida, South Carolina can't ticket me, right? But yeah, it's you get complacent. You're like, oh, I don't need to even look anymore, and that's a problem. So I hope it doesn't go that route, but it looks more and more like we're going
And
that route.
everybody's doing that. And
Yeah.
all the cars are talking to each other.
Yeah,
Everybody's on the same speed.
yeah,
Well,
That's
that could
where
be,
the
I
real
suppose, but I think it would be, it's a big jump to get.
we're creating a highway right now, and what is the 429 or something that's going to be all as you drive with your Tesla, it charges your battery. So I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going that route. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Who do I ticket though? Do I ticket the driver or do I ticket the car? You know? Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
You mentioned about this defensive driving course in Seminole County.
Mhm.
Is that the one that's given at Seminole College?
So it's our course, like through the sheriff's office, we run it, and then we do it at the driving range in Geneva. That is part of the college too. The Geneva driving range is part of the college. You can call the college, and I'm not sure if they offer a separate one, but if they do, they use our instructors. Because we teach at the academy.
You take it there at the school itself.
No, ours.
It's not the one by ARC that you go to a class, a 6-hour class.
So theirs is out in Geneva,
Yeah.
actually at a course
Yeah.
where you're going to be driving,
Yeah.
not a classroom. I mean, you may have a classroom out there.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah. Just look up if you look on the sheriff's office site, you can look for the civilian driving course.
And let me ask you a question, Detective. If I'm not a Seminole County resident, can I still come?
I don't know that part of it. That part I'm not sure of,
Okay.
but I would still look into it.
And I would think that Orange County probably has something similar. Oh, Susan?
Is it the safety council? 'Cause my daughter did that.
There is a class, I know the Safety Council does offer a class for mature drivers, and they have an office in Castleberry, and there's one in Orlando too, I think.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of great resources, and Detective also said there's a comedy school.
Yeah, the comedy club offers the mature driver course. It says you can,
You ready to sign up, Andrew?
Do they use the clown car?
it says you learn with a laugh. So,
I don't know, that might be a fun outing we should plan. Oh, we've got another question up here. Oh, in the back, and then we'll come to you.
Well, I was expecting more about, I mean, it seemed like this is mostly, things we should stop driving.
Can you hold the microphone closer?
I was wondering more about, what to do, while we're, kind of transitioning from not driving at all. I saw something, in the paper about, it was like a micro mini car, but it was only, they're only allowed to drive on roads up to 35 miles an hour. Those will only go 40 miles an hour. It's not allowed to go on, highways. And I was thinking, well, we may get, and I see in my community, and I hate them, but there are people driving all over the place in golf carts. And I just think that, how to transition from, hey, I can drive anywhere, I can drive to, nonstop to New York, which I've never done, but I know people that did. And the other thing is, what to do, I've only had, fortunately, only twice been involved in an accident where I wasn't able to, drive home afterwards. And it was, 60 years, well, over 50 years ago. And it happened in Montana, and I called my insurance agent here in Florida. And he had somebody or somebody, and he got somebody to come and take me to a hotel to got things straightened out. I got the car fixed and everything. But about 2 years ago, I was in an accident over driving to Crystal River or whatever. And somebody rear-ended me, and I called my State Farm agent, State Farm is there.
yeah.
I called my agent, he said, oh, you have to call the, our adjuster or whatever. All I got was a voicemail that told me I needed to enter something. I had to go online to file a claim. And here I'm sitting out on the side of the highway. Highway patrol came, I think they, make sure everybody, like you said, nobody was seriously injured. And the other guy was able to drive off. Fortunately, he said he would come back and he would take me someplace where I could rent a car. The highway patrol waited until somebody came and hauled my car off. And I was sitting there on the side of the road with, well, I had my son and my grandson with me. And there should have been, in looking back, I should have done something differently. But we need to, what should we do?
So Larry, what's the crux of the question is when you're faced with let's say something's happened,
Yeah,
you want to know how to navigate that situation?
yeah, and maybe this is the one that senior citizens.
Sure, so in the moment, and I know we talk a lot about it depends on the situation, but can you give us some guidance, Detective?
Yeah, I mean, you did nothing wrong. you know, you called the police, you called your insurance agent, let them know what was happening. Obviously, State Farm will handle that part of it.
No.
Oh, sorry.
Lucky, you know, as far as they were concerned, you know, I needed to follow, I had to do everything online.
Yeah, you need to switch to a different State Farm agent.
For sure.
I have a great one. I'll let you know when I leave. But like my son just had a crash. My son was involved in the crash. He got sideswiped in Lakeland. So he called the police. Obviously, then we called State Farm. State Farm was real quick to take everything over the phone. But like you said, you did your part. You should have obviously been moved from the highway to somewhere else. You know, that was probably a bad part on the cops, whoever responded. But that's really much as we can do as law enforcement wise. When we go to a crash, obviously when we respond, I know I've responded many times, and you know, there's a man, male, female, kids, whatever, and I put them in the car and I take them to a safe location, right? Whether that's a gas station or a restaurant, wherever the safest place I can get them to right away and get them off the road. And then from there, State Farm or your insurance, Geico, Progressive, whoever should be able to tell you what to do, what's next. You know, get you to whatever location you have to go to, and sometimes talk to whoever's there handling the crash. Again, I can't speak for every agency, but I do know in Seminole County, it's different for us. Sheriff Lima is big on us showing compassion to people in general. It doesn't matter who you are. So in that situation, if you're like, hey, I need to get over here because they're gonna have my car and they're gonna give me a rental, I'll take that person there. I've taken people way away from the crash to a tire shop that they need, you know, so it just depends on where you're at the time, unfortunately, but you did nothing wrong.
And so maybe don't be afraid to ask for help in that moment, to say, hey, I'm stranded by the side of the road. They've just taken my car to some repair shop. I've got to navigate. Can you help me?
100% ask. Again, teddy bear, love long parts apart, right? Like, I will go out of my way to help someone, because at the end of the day, it's not that I'm there to help someone and look good for the sheriff. At the end of the day, that's just the right thing to do as a human being, right? Because that could be me one day, right? So that's all.
Sean, I think we had a question there in the third row.
Do any of these defensive driving courses or mature development courses, is there anything cognitive about it? Because I think that's much more of a problem than the inability to navigate the road. They've been driving for 70 or 50 years, and that's a lot of times not a problem.
No, so I think more taking these courses as like a defensive driving course is because you've been driving for 60, 70 years in a row. You're so used. No.
Is there anything that can be screened?
Yeah, so
Is that part of the course?
no, not part of the course, but I would say your best course of action for that is, again, contacting like the ADRC back there and get a screening.
And I would say also Conquest, which is one of our partners, they do free screenings.
Yep.
There are several places where you can get a free screening
Yes.
here in the community. And we've talked about this in our seminars before, and we're actually going to be talking about it again this summer. Getting those cognitive tests needs to be, we need to think of them like we're getting an eye test, like we're getting a hearing test, like we're getting our colonoscopy or our mammogram, right? We need to get our brains checked, and that means starting with a baseline and getting it checked maybe every year to make sure that we're maintaining everything the way we should, because we've learned, I've learned since I've started doing these seminars, what's good for the heart is good for the brain. So that has changed the way my diet is. We talk about the importance of physical exercise. One of the things that I thought about a little bit earlier was, if we're hesitant to ask for help, then we're going to be staying at home more, which leads to isolation. And we know that that's a killer and a brain killer as well. What did Sarah said? It was more dangerous than smoking? Isolation. And so having those brain tests done from time to time. So I would encourage you to reach out to Conquest. We can connect you with them. They do the free testing, and that helps quite a lot. There's a couple of other resources that we have as well. A lot of doctors will do screenings, but they're very general. And you probably want, it's like you want a GI doctor looking at your colonoscopy, so you've got a specialist to look at that. You want a brain specialist to look at your cognitive issues and make sure that you're on track.
I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I remember years ago on 2020, Hugh Downs said something that I thought was very profound. They were talking about brain health, and he said, it's not when you forget where your car keys are, because that happens to all of us. It's when you forget what your car keys are for. That needs to be the concern. And so those sorts of things are the kind of things that they're going to test for at a Conquest. Robin, do you have anything to add to that?
I do know a woman, her name is Jordan Wetter, like bedwetter.
Okay.
Unfortunate name, but Jordan Wetter with Driveology 22. If you have a loved one who is saying, no, I'm fine to drive, she can go out in the car with them, and she's got the brake on her side. It's like a 3-hour analysis. So that's kind of for the person who's like, no, I'm a perfect driver. You're like, all right, let's bring in the neutral third party. And then she sticks around long enough. She's like, after that first hour, they start to relax and drive like they normally do. And that's when, she sometimes uses that brake she's got on her side.
Okay, does that help answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Oh, we got one back there.
I have a friend who the family had to take the keys away from the husband who was legally blind, among other things. But in the midst of that process, he went online and renewed his license. So, there seems to be a big gap there.
That goes back to our technology question. You can do everything online and not even be in person anymore. And that's a problem. Because if he would have walked into the DMV and probably hit the door, they were like, number 5, and he stood by number 7, they'd be like, that's a problem, right? So again, there's little ways that people get through it. But again, with the family being involved or friends being involved, that's when the family can be like, call the DMV and be like, hey, he shouldn't have a license. He renewed it online, but this is the issue. And then they'll set him up for every examination where he has to come now in person to show that he can or cannot drive.
Does that help, Barbara? All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. Detective Martell, this was a wealth of information. I really enjoyed you being here, and I think everybody else did as well. Did we try and sell you anything? So now the question becomes, and this is a very practical one, we ask this every time at our seminars, what are you going to do with what you learned today? So I want you to maybe think about your next action step. Is it getting a brain test? Is it looking into the defensive driving classes that are offered near you? Is it calling AARP? Different things like that. Ask questions. Please remember that you are our connection to the world. We thank you, those of you that have brought friends today. Your feedback is super important to us. So again, we're going to ask you to fill out that blue sheet and drop it off with Susan as you leave, so that we can help make these seminars better and better for you. You can also pre-register. Sean and Dana from Evershore Financial are going to be on our panel next month to talk about how we can afford to live to be 100. I think that's something important for all of us. And so you can pre-register there. And then we always close with a great quote. Aging is an opportunity to live, not an excuse to quit. So let's go out and live today. Dodge the raindrops. I hope everybody stays dry. Thank you so much for coming. It was good to see you. Take care.
Thank